Hey everyone, you're watching Ash on Comics. I'm Ash. This is today's comic, Immortal number 4. I'm doing a review on it. I've reviewed the first 3 issues, and as I've said in the past, this is my favorite of the New Age of Heroes. Disclaimer, I have not read all the New Age of Heroes. I have not read Terrifics, nor have I read Brimstone or Sideways. So some people say the Terrifics is the best, and maybe that's so. But if it's better than Immortal Men, then Terrifics is pretty good, because I'm liking this book. When we last left our heroes, they were fighting the Infinite Woman, led by the Immortal Man himself. We start this book off 50,000 years in the past. And sorry for that noise and someone riding their motorcycle down the street. We come to see the original Immortal Men, the 5, are going back to the caveman days. We don't actually see what their actual origin is. I mean, I'm assuming they were birthed from other humans, but we don't see that they have any sort of family lineage. It's just these 5. So where did they come from? We don't know. So this whole intro to the story is kind of just talking about how they're the 5. And they kind of each took on their own, not identity, but aspect. So one was knowledge, one was conquest, harmony, expression, and action. And Immortal Man represents action. And as we see here, the Infinite Woman, she is conquest. We don't really know what happened to the other 3. We just, this time through this story, these 2 are at odds. And apparently they had a pact long ago when they parted, they went their separate ways and decided they were going to help humanity. That they wouldn't interfere with each other. In fact, it says here in the text, they would find their disciples, build their houses, and fight for this world's survival. But one rule held firm throughout the ages. They had sworn to stay out of one another's way until now. So, in the Mortal Men comic that we're at now is essentially this point in time where at least these 2 are at odds. I'm assuming she's killed the other 3. It kind of feels a little bit Highlander-ish. There can be only one. Also feels a little X-Men-y in the sense that we have, Xavier here and Magneto over here having completely different ideologies of how humanity needs to progress. She believes that humanity can only be strong through conflict. He strongly disagrees, and so they fight. So this issue is pretty much a slam-bam, big action fest of the characters up against the wall as Infinite Woman has cornered them. And so they're fighting, and then the narration is over the fight, kind of talking about some of the origins, like where this girl came from. And it plays out really well. I really enjoyed the flow of this book. As you're seeing the visuals of the action happening, and then kind of also getting the story about them overlaid. It comes to a head. Immortal Man talks about how the Infinite Woman killed one of his progeny. He says, I remember saving a young woman from the streets of London in the time of the plague. In her mind were 1,000,000 impossible machines that she knew how to build. She died yesterday, her throat slit by one of your bloodless. Her blood helped forge that filthy weapon that you carry in your stained hands. But her creations, these swords, will help avenge her death. All those deaths. And the dream will live on. And he lights up these 2 lightsaber-ish inspired swords. I don't know what else to call them. They're pretty cool looking. I mean, the whole thing is energy. Enough with your dreams, brother. And then they clash. I really enjoyed this build up. This reminded me of, I'm gonna be exposing my age here. If anyone has watched the old school original Transformers movie, the animated feature from like 1980, I want to say like 87 maybe. I remember as a kid going to the theater with my buddy, and we were just kids and we liked Transformers and we loved the Transformers cartoon we'd watch after school. And so we're like, oh, there's a Transformers movie. And we didn't know much better. We were just going to see it because it's Transformers. And going to that theater and then watching this movie, we had no idea what to expect. And if you are a nostalgic child of the 80s and you experience this, I'm sure you will relate. How that movie, the quality of that movie was so surpassing the normal like TV show. And the writing, when the story builds to a head and Megatron confronts, he's destroying all the Autobots, and finally Optimus Prime has to step forward and be like, no more, and he steps up and they have a clash. It was just like, holy shit. As a kid, I was just like, this is it. This is like the most amazing standoff I've ever seen. And this kind of, it wasn't that level of excitement for me, but it kind of harkened back to that. You're like, uh-oh, now it's on. The two, mommy and daddy here, are going to throw down, and only one's going to walk away. So, we see the rest of them are fighting. We got the, sort of the, what's that term? The MacGuffin is this kid, and Immortal Man, he's like the most important thing. Immortal Man only cares about just keep this kid safe. He's sort of the future. And you don't really know why, but we do know he has powers, and they sort of trigger here. We're not sure exactly what happens. I'll let you interpret that for yourself. These other characters are trying to figure out a way to escape and get out of here, and they can't. They're talking about their powers are drained, they're not working right, and he starts to realize what he can do with his powers. One of the things that he can do is sort of mimic other people, and he asks for Ghostfist to take his hand. And he wants to see if this works. And then it's like, I know Kung Fu. Keanu, eat your freaking heart out. That was kind of a silly line. But I like the idea they did kind of the Matrix thing. Like he can touch Ghostfist and absorb all of his knowledge about martial arts. And now he's equivalent. That's at least part of his power. So he becomes not just a helpless wallflower. He joins in the action, and they're fighting, and it goes on. And I'm not going to read all the dialogue, but this is all actually very interesting. It looks like there's a lot of heavy text, but we see the characters bantering and talking to each other, as they fight, which is your typical war of words, and then more just narration of the history of the Immortal Men that you've kind of been wondering about for the first 3 issues. You're like, what's going on? And I like how they start to unveil pull back the curtain a little bit. And we do not need to see 2-page spreads of Superman #1. One of the Immortal Men characters has been captured by the Hunt, who is sort of a Wolverine-esque character. That's all I can really think about him. He's kind of got the same attitude. He's got swords instead of claws. I don't know. He's just an all-around badass. And he's kind of talking, saying, you shouldn't have put the old man in the corner, because now watch out. He's going to start whooping some ass. And we're going through, and they're fighting, and Immortal Man's just destroying everything. He's just laying waste. Again, you're getting this whole backstory, which I'll let you read. It is actually very interesting. I was kind of gripped. And then finally, oops, I kind of didn't really cover this right. So, at some point, he puts down Infinite Woman. Where's that panel? Should have been a more standout panel. I think I just breezed past it. Yeah, so he's fighting Infinite Woman here, and he's beating down. Where is? Oh yeah. he's fighting, and he says, finally puts her down. The scene probably should have been better rendered, obviously. This should have been a bigger, maybe a full page of oh, you finished her off. He says, I am a man of action. I do not stand down. And she's laying there, supposedly dead. You're like, oh, shit. Killed the Infinite Woman. And then he's fighting off the Brood. So I kind of didn't reveal this correctly. But you shouldn't be watching my review for reveals anyway. And this obviously is a spoiler. But there's still a lot to be gained as he's fighting, and he's talking about who he is and his dream, saving humanity, blah, 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 blah. And then at the very end, she comes out of nowhere, and this was the day it died, referring to his dream. And she just stabs him through the chest with a Final Fantasy sword there. And, yeah, presumably there's no walking away from a big splorch like that. And he goes down for the count. But it's not over. Should I spoil? Should I spoil? Yeah, that's actually the big spoiler. So he's, dying here, and she's, basically given the haha villain, speech. Can you feel your progeny now, brother? Your precious house of action? Nothing could pierce your heart but the blood of those you empowered. This is the end, Clarn. So I found that kind of interesting too. So he's kind of invulnerable except to the people he empowered. And she's using the sword of the girl that he empowered. So it's like his own progeny is what allowed him to die. And that's kind of interesting. No, there is no end. She says, hush now. Just going to let him die. And you're like, oh, it's sad. Cough, cough. Oh, no, don't die on us. Bring me the boy. Well, remember, the boy can not steal powers, but he can pull all your knowledge, right? So you kind of see where this is going. Take my hand. Do it fast, boy. What did you see? I didn't see anything. He's dead. I don't buy that for a second. Immortal Man's going to live on through this kid is what I'm presuming. At least Immortal Man's all his knowledge will live on through this kid, and that's why he's so important. That's my guess. That's the end of this issue, and that's the end of this review. This was the best issue so far. As I suspected reading the first issues, the first three, that they were all building up to something. And this issue is sort of that build-up. I think number 5 will sort of take it over the top, where we see where it's going to go from here. And I really appreciate it. I enjoyed 4 issues of introduction and getting us started. I think this is way more effective than what a lot of people argue for and say, I want all this in one single issue and get it going. I don't think you can have a quality narrative of this complexity in 22 pages of comic. It would just be big wall of text. It just wouldn't be exciting. Some people differ with me. Maybe you differ with me. I don't know. This I really enjoyed. I'm excited that the book's getting better as it goes on, rather than plateauing or maybe falling down. The art, while not Jim Lee, and people complain, Jim Lee only did the first issue, and it's like, come on, if you thought Jim Lee was going to do more than an issue or two, you were just fooling yourself. The guy is doing way too much over at DC to have time drawing comics. So I'm just pleased that this art I found, satisfactory. Doesn't wow me, but the artist knows what they're doing. They've got great sequential visual storytelling. I was able to follow what's going on. This was my only kind of gripe. And I only really griped about it when I did the review, because I kind of glossed over it, and I think it should have stood out. But when I was reading the comic and I was focusing, this it wasn't like I missed it. The story was conveyed. I just think now in hindsight, this probably would have been better served, and this is probably more from the writer than the artist, because the writer probably gave him a 5-panel script for this page. The writer probably should have maybe put like a 3-panel and allowed for a big, impactful, like, oh shit, she's dead, because it would be more believable as well that she's really down for the count. But that's just a small nitpick. I enjoyed this. This might be one of my favorite books I'm reading, period, which is mostly DC. I urge people, if you're interested in Immortal Men, to give it a broader shot. You know, don't judge it off of a single issue. And you know, you can see all 4 of my reviews, so if you want to know what the book's about and how it transpires, obviously I've spoiled everything up to here. It's not my goal to read the comics to anyone, and there's certainly a lot more to be gleaned. I didn't give you all the details of the book, I just gave you the quick synopsis. There's a lot more depth to the story here that will make it more interesting when you actually read it for yourself. This is the one. I'm glad. This is the one I was most interested in, and this is the one that is my favorite. I will continue to buy this. This is a big thumbs up. I hope you guys support it. If you do, if you go and decide to pick this book up, number 4 just came out. Not this past Wednesday, but the Wednesday before. It's on the new shelf. You can probably get number 3. Finding 1 and 2 in back issues is probably very easy. If you pick this up, move the needle. Tag me on Twitter. Let DC know that this is a good book and that other people are recommending it, and that's why you bought it. Let James Tynion IV know, that you like what he's doing. I'm liking his writing. I think he's well suited for this style of book. This is something DC needs. Tyler Kirkham's art is, well, that's going to be up to you. Everything's subjective usually on art. $2.99. Move the needle. Tell them, DC, make great books for $2.99 and you will be a fan for life. Jim Lee is still doing the covers, which is fun as well. Maybe we can keep him doing covers if we can keep selling books. Anyways, hope you liked. Let me know in the comments your feedback. And I hope to see you more on future episodes. Thanks.